Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload. She stood in the doorway of the bedroom, bags at her feet, voice steady but cold. "You didn't want to open our marriage," she said, eyes hard. "So I'm taking the kids and moving in with my lover." For a beat he just stared, heart slamming, mind trying to catch up. Open the marriage? The words echoed absurdly. They'd built their home on trust, on love, not experiments. And now here she was, packing, his daughter watching, eyes bright with something unrecognizable. His heart buckled when she turned away, her fingers clutching the straps of her suitcase. Behind her, their daughter, not a child anymore, not with tone and fury like that, snapped. "We don't need you anymore. My new daddy promised to buy me a car for my 16th birthday, and we're moving to his Beverly Hills mansion." The weight of it, not just the betrayal, but the casual cruelty, the dismissal, hit like a punch. He swallowed against the ache in his throat, voice cracking as he found words. "Wait, you can't just—" But doors closed, the click sharp and final. The hallway fell silent, and he stayed there, numb, as footsteps receded, and their lives pivoted without warning. Night came slow, the house suddenly cavernous. He walked through rooms they'd filled with laughter. The living room with its well-worn couch, the kitchen table where homework was done and pancakes shared. Each corner held echoes. He sat at the table that night, alone, and stared at the half-finished cup of coffee, cold now, bitter. He'd been blindsided, not by her decision, that he could accept in time, but by the cruelty and the rehearsed lines, by the finality. Below, in the nursery-turned-guest room, there stood 2 suitcases, already packed for the kids. They'd carried the day's drama with them. Mara hadn't looked back as they'd left. He exhaled, all the breath in him whooshing out, and realized something, in responding with anger, with fear he would play into their script. They wanted a reaction. They wanted to break him. A flame kindled inside, a need not just to respond, but to reclaim. He thought of the daughter's words about a car and a mansion. He thought how easily she'd been swayed by promises as empty as they might be, how easily they'd walked away, and how he wouldn't let them walk away with his dignity. He rose, pacing. His house was silent, but for its own reminders. A photograph of his daughter's first day at school, messy hair and gap-toothed grin. A note from his wife stuck on the fridge with a magnet, dated just last month. Dinner 7 p.m.? He stared at it, so mundane, so intimate. He tore it down and folded it in 2. This was no longer just a breakup. It was war for love, for truth, for what he'd built. He needed a plan, not for retaliation and anger, but for justice and clarity. He'd involve lawyers, yes, but beyond that he'd gather their truth, let every promise of the lover's world show its cracks. Because the mansion and the car were fantasies to a girl just turning 16. He would show her what real commitment looked like, not just opulent displays. He opened his laptop and began researching custody laws, calculating living arrangements, looking into teenage psychology. How a 16-year-old might be enchanted by smooth words now, but face the emptiness when the lights dimmed and reality pressed. He drafted emails. To his lawyer, brief but firm. To trusted friends, to seek support. To counselors for himself and later for his daughter, who would need help untangling the emotional wreckage. He found photographs of happier times between his wife and him. Vacations, holidays, quiet mornings. He gathered them, printing one to keep on his desk. She'd taken a lot, but she wouldn't take the past they'd lived. That memory belonged to him as well. Midnight found him downstairs, heart pounding but calm. Calm because he had direction. He stood by the front window, looking into the night, seeing the street empty, the world quiet. He embraced the guilt and the sorrow and turned them into resolve. Part of him ached to call for her to come back, to swear he'd reconsider, but that would be weakness. She had chosen to cast him aside. He owed no more of himself to someone who would walk away. Instead, he leaked the story. Not to tabloids, but to people who mattered. Parents worried about betrayal. Networks of support. Counselors who specialized in adolescent trauma. Not to shame his wife or her lover, but to create a network of caring arms ready for his daughter when reality hit. On the kitchen counter lay the echo of an undone night. Coffee gone cold, a pen, the note that said, "Dinner 7 p.m." It felt symbolic now, the everyday turned weaponized in hindsight. He folded it further until it became small enough to slip into his heart, a reminder of what happened, not burdensome, but real, a lesson he would carry forward. Slowly, he began writing a letter, one he wouldn't send, not yet. To his daughter, if she ever read it someday. "Sweetheart, I know right now everything feels like it's changing. I know you're angry and excited and lost. I want you to know I will always be here for you. Car or no car, mansion or no mansion. Your father loves you more than anything." He paused, blinking back emotion, then closed the draft. Not yet. Dawn crept in. Light fell on the empty hall, the suitcases gone, the house hollow but still standing. He held his notebook, full of plans. He breathed deep. This night had introduced a new chapter, and in silence had borne him strength. He whispered to the empty rooms, "I'm not done," and he meant it. The next morning arrived like a weight pressing down on his chest. The house was quiet. Too quiet. No footsteps upstairs, no slammed doors from a teenager running late, no cartoons echoing from the living room TV. Just silence and the occasional hum of the fridge. He got up slowly, as if sleep had never really happened, because it hadn't. Not in the real sense. He'd been thinking all night, mapping out scenarios, holding back emotions that threatened to drown him. The betrayal was fresh, but what stayed with him more was the way his daughter had looked at him, with dismissal, maybe even disgust. He had never imagined himself in this kind of story. Sure, he'd heard about marriages falling apart, about affairs, and even about people trying open relationships only to end in chaos. But not in his life. Not with the woman he'd shared 10 years with. The woman who used to steal his fries off his plate even when she ordered her own. The woman who danced barefoot in the kitchen when her favorite 90s song came on. The woman who had stood in front of him and said, "You didn't want to open our marriage, so I'm taking the kids." Like it was just a consequence of his unwillingness to compromise. Over the next week, he became a man on a mission. He met with a lawyer, a no-nonsense older woman named Janet, whose eyes didn't blink once as he told her the situation. "She left with the kids," he said. "Took them to some other guy's house. I don't even know him. I don't know if it's safe. He promised my daughter a car. She's 16. Janet raised a brow. "She left the marital home. That's a big deal. Did she leave a note? A custody plan? Anything in writing?" He shook his head. "Nothing. Just told me she was done. Took them and left." Janet jotted things down. "You may have a stronger position than you think, especially if she's living with someone new and the children's environment becomes unstable or financially dependent on this new man's promises. If he fails to provide what he's offering, the courts won't like that." It wasn't revenge he wanted. It was stability. His kids, his daughter, even if she was being cruel right now, he knew it wasn't really her. It was emotion, influence, hype from a man trying to buy his way into a family. What kind of man promises a car to a teenager he just met? He muttered aloud. Janet tapped her pen. "A man trying too hard. It won't last." Back home, the days passed slowly. He started cleaning, at first out of restlessness, but then it became something more, like reclaiming his space. He found one of his daughter's hoodies still in the laundry. It smelled like her coconut shampoo. He folded it neatly and placed it on her bed, just in case she came back. He also began journaling. Not because he was a writer, but because he needed somewhere to put the pain, the confusion, and the swirling thoughts. In one entry, he wrote, "She's chasing fairy dust. A mansion in Beverly Hills, a man who makes promises he doesn't have to keep. But one day that shine will wear off. What happens when she sees through it? Will she come home?" He didn't know, but he wanted to be ready if she did. By the end of the second week, he got his first call from his daughter. "Hey," she said, voice casual. "Hey, sweetheart." He kept his tone calm, neutral. "How are you?" "I'm fine, just... Mom says you're trying to get custody, is that true?" There it was, the wall. "I'm not trying to take you from your mom," he replied gently. "I'm just making sure I still have a place in your life." Silence. Then, "Well, I'm happy here. Chris, Mom's boyfriend. He's awesome. His house is huge. We each have our own bathroom, and he's letting me look at Teslas. I might get one early." The words were loaded, defensive. He didn't take the bait. "Sounds like it's exciting," he said slowly. "But I hope you know it's not the house or the car that makes a home. It's who's in it." Another pause. Then with a teenager's sharpness, "Yeah, well, he's doing more for me than you ever did. Maybe if you weren't so stubborn, Mom wouldn't have left." That stung more than anything she could have said. But again, he kept his tone level. "Maybe one day you'll understand why I believed what I did, why I stood where I stood." She hung up without another word. Later that night, he sat at the dinner table, the one that had once been filled with giggles and late-night board games. Now it was just him and his thoughts. He didn't cry. He didn't rage. He just sat there with a notebook, writing down every memory he had of her childhood. Her favorite books, her love for pancakes, her obsession with that stuffed penguin she'd named Oliver. He wrote it all down, not to hold on to the past, but to remind himself of who she really was beneath the current whirlwind. A few days later, something unexpected happened. The mansion-dwelling boyfriend, Chris, posted a video on social media. He was apparently some kind of entrepreneur with a YouTube channel, showing off flashy cars and expensive dinners. In this particular video, he proudly said, "You know, I don't really do kids. But hey, it's part of the deal if you want the full package." It was meant to be a joke, but it wasn't funny, especially when his wife laughed along in the background. He saw it because someone at work, someone who had seen the channel, sent it to him. "Isn't that your ex's new guy?" they asked. And just like that, he had evidence. It wasn't about dragging them online. It was about building his case. The video, the lavish promises, the brags about not caring for children, it painted a picture, not of abuse, but of neglect, of instability, of flash over substance. He sent it to Janet. 2 days later, she called him. "We're filing for shared custody, with primary residence with you. I'm confident we'll get it. The courts won't love that clip." He didn't tell his daughter, not yet, but the tides were turning. He got another call from her 2 days later. "Hey," she said again. "Hey." She hesitated. "Do you think maybe we could have dinner sometime? Just us?" His breath caught. "Of course. Any time." "Okay. I'll talk to Mom. Maybe this weekend." "Let me know," he said softly. "I'll make your favorite, pasta with the spicy red sauce." She almost smiled through the phone. "You remembered?" "I remember everything about you." That weekend came, and she didn't. Show. No call, no message. He waited 2 hours before finally blowing out the candles on the table. The sauce had gone cold. The salad had wilted, but he didn't throw it away. He packed it all into the fridge, just in case. Later, a message popped up. "Sorry, Chris said it was weird to have dinner with you. Mom agreed, maybe next week." He didn't reply. Not with anger, not with guilt. He just wrote again in his journal, "She'll see the truth eventually. Not because I told her, but because the fantasy will fade." A few nights later, he received a different message, from his younger child, the one who was only 10. It was a voice recording, short and innocent. "Hi, Daddy, I miss you. When are you picking me up?" It shattered something in him, but in a good way. Because for the first time in weeks, he felt like he still mattered. Like not everything had been lost. He recorded a message back. "Hi, buddy. I miss you too. I'll see you really soon. I promise." And this time, he wasn't just hoping. He knew it. The court date came sooner than expected. His lawyer, Janet, had moved quickly. The evidence, the social media video, the abrupt departure, the lack of stability in the new living situation had made a strong case. Even the judge had raised an eyebrow after watching the clip of Chris laughing and admitting he wasn't interested in parenting. "You don't really do kids?" the judge repeated, peering over the edge of his glasses. "That's quite an attitude to promote publicly when you're now living with 2 of them under your roof." His wife looked tense in court, her confident exterior wearing thin under the scrutiny. She no longer smiled the way she used to in public, no longer had that sparkling energy she'd shown in the beginning. Even Chris didn't show up. He'd apparently flown out to some crypto convention in Miami. She had to stand alone, and it was the first time he saw the cracks. The judge listened to both sides. Then, he read from the documents, pausing before saying, "Given the nature of the living situation, the children's best interests are not clearly being met. The promises of material possessions cannot substitute for stable parenting." It was the quietest moment in the courtroom. Then came the decision: joint legal custody, but primary physical custody to the father. Visitation to be shared with the mother, granted weekends on alternating schedules. It was more than he expected, and it was exactly what the children needed. The first night back, the house was different. Not because it was full again, but because it felt like something had shifted. Not in the space, but in him. His younger son arrived first, bounding through the door with the energy only a 10-year-old could have. "Daddy, your fridge still has my drawings." He knelt down and hugged him tight. "Of course, they're staying right there." And then came his daughter. She stepped through the threshold slowly, suitcase rolling behind her. She didn't look him in the eye. She just said, "Mom said we had to follow the court order, so—" He didn't press. "Come on in," he said gently. "Your room's the same. But if you want to change anything, we'll go shopping this weekend. Your call." She paused. "Even if I want to paint it black?" He smiled. "Even then." That night, they ate spaghetti. His son devoured it. His daughter barely touched hers. He didn't ask questions. He didn't try to force conversation. He just let the silence be what it was. A few nights later, she came downstairs after bedtime. She found him in the kitchen, cleaning up. "Hey," she said, standing in the doorway. "So, Chris traded in the Tesla." He turned. "Oh?" "Yeah. Said the insurance was too high. Got a used BMW instead." He nodded slowly. "Still a good car." She shrugged. "I didn't get it." He gave it to his assistant. Silence. Then, "I guess it was never really mine. It was just an idea. You know?" He put down the dish towel. "You're not a bad person for wanting nice things," he said gently. "But you're more than the things people promise you." She looked away. Her voice cracked. "I thought he was going to be different. He told me he was like a bonus dad. But he never even talks to me unless Mom tells him to." He stepped closer but didn't touch her. "That's not your fault." She sniffled. "Mom's different too. She's always tired. Chris is always traveling. Sometimes she leaves me to watch Dylan while she's gone." That broke his heart, but he kept calm. "You're home now," he said. "You're not responsible for anyone else's mess." She nodded. "Thanks, Dad." Over the next few weeks, they started to rebuild, not just routines, but relationships. He didn't push her. He didn't ask for explanations or apologies. He just kept showing up, making breakfast, driving her to school, helping with homework, even when she rolled her eyes. She started smiling again. One night, after a school open house, she got into the car and said, "Remember how I used to say I wanted to be a vet?" "Yeah. I think I still do, but maybe like an exotic animal vet. Like in a zoo or something." He smiled. "That sounds like something you'd be amazing at." She glanced over. "Thanks. I kind of forgot who I was for a while." His throat tightened. "It happens. But you're finding your way back. That's what matters." As the holidays approached, her mother texted asking to take the kids for Thanksgiving week. He didn't argue. He didn't resist. He just said, "Let's ask them." His daughter looked hesitant when he told her. "You don't have to go if you don't want to," he assured her. She frowned. "It's not that. I want to see Mom. I just don't want to deal with him." He didn't ask questions, but she added quietly, "He yells at her sometimes, not like dangerous, just like scary, over dumb things. Like if dinner's cold." A pause. "I don't think he's a bad guy. I just don't think he likes us there anymore." He reached for her hand across the table. "You can always come home early." She nodded. "I know." Thanksgiving passed. She returned a day earlier than scheduled. She didn't say much when she got home, just dropped her suitcase, went upstairs, and emerged later wearing sweatpants and asking if they had hot chocolate. They watched a movie that night, one they used to love together. She fell asleep on the couch halfway through, head on his shoulder. He stayed still until the credits rolled. Months passed. She turned 16, and he didn't buy her a car. Instead, he took her to get her learner's permit and gave her his old set of keys. "I'll teach you," he said. "Every weekend, as long as you're ready." She nodded. "I'd rather learn from you anyway." One afternoon, while driving back from a lesson, she looked out the window and said, "Do you still love Mom?" He didn't answer right away. "I did," he said. "I loved her deeply. But the person she became isn't the person I married." She nodded slowly. "She says you were too rigid, that you didn't let her be herself." He didn't deny it. "I tried to give us a life with boundaries, security. Maybe I was too focused on protecting it. But I never stopped loving her, until she stopped loving me." Another pause. "Do you think she regrets it?" He kept his eyes on the road. "Maybe. But that's her journey now." She looked out the window again. "I think she's lonely." "She has Chris." "Not really." High school ended and life moved forward. His daughter applied to colleges. She got into a pre-vet program in Oregon. His son joined the middle school basketball team and made the starting lineup. Their mother saw them sometimes. Some weekends, some holidays. But the shine had worn off. The mansion was sold. Chris had moved to Florida. Their relationship had ended quietly. One evening, his ex-wife stood awkwardly in his doorway, waiting to pick up their son. She looked thinner, tired. "Thanks for taking care of them," she said. Quietly. He nodded. "They're good kids. You helped make that happen too." She smiled faintly. "I thought I wanted freedom. I thought I wanted adventure. And I just wanted to be seen." He didn't say anything for a moment. Then, "I saw you. Maybe you stopped seeing yourself." Her eyes welled up, but she blinked quickly. "Take care, okay?" "You too." And just like that, she was gone again. Years later, when his daughter finished her first year of college, she came home for the summer. She still had the hoodie he'd folded years ago, still wore it. One night on the porch, sipping iced tea, she said, "You know what the worst part was?" "What?" "I thought he was the hero. I thought you were the villain. I'm sorry." He shook his head. "No need to be sorry. You were young. You were hurting. But you never fought dirty. You never yelled or tried to pull me away." He smiled softly. "Because I knew you'd find your way back. And when you did, I wanted to be someone you could trust." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "You always were." The past wasn't forgotten, but it no longer controlled him. He didn't need revenge. He didn't need to prove anything. In the end, the truth had spoken louder than any outburst ever could, and the people who mattered came home. Not because they were forced to, but because they wanted to.